Okay, everyone, it's going to get serious, and I'm grateful for everyone who found their way to this room this afternoon. Before my speakers make themselves too much comfortable on the seats, I would like to maybe already ask you to the stage. Please, Thomas Prorok, Managing Director from KDZ, Research Center for Public Administration Research, Ada Daguda, Director at the Center for Civil Society Promotion, and Johan Magnusson, Team Leader and Senior Expert and Directorate General Regional and Urban Policy, DG Regio from the European Commission. Kindly ask you to the stage and make yourself comfortable. You can just... Please come. Okay. So, welcome, a warm welcome to everyone who made it to today's Masterclass Enlargement in Action, Civil Society and Municipalities Shaping the Future. Today's session is a little bit a continuation of the 12th Danube Participation Day that we had yesterday here in this very premises, together organized together with the Danube Civil Society Forum, the Local Democracy Agency, Mostar, and of course also with the support of the presidency of the Danube Strategy of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But today we would like to sort of bring all these discussions a little bit to the point. And with this, we want to also contribute to one of this presidency's priorities, which is EU enlargement, EU accession. But despite we usually tend to talk this more from the perspective of national governments and candidate countries at national level negotiating with the European Union, we would like to look at the subnational level and contributions from civil society organizations, cities and municipalities, and other local actors when it comes to EU enlargement. And I'm very pleased that today with me on the stage are three very esteemed experts talking about the role of municipalities, of civil society organizations, and of course the role that cohesion policy plays. And since we are here at the annual forum of the EU Danube Strategy, that we're also talking, of course, about how macro-regional cooperation can play its role and other instruments of cohesion policy. So, as you can see, we have here our three experts, but also a fourth, so to say, surprise guest, and this is basically the results from the Danube Participation Day, and I have the honor to channel all the participants that were with us yesterday to talk a bit more about what we have discussed in the discussion. So we had around 90 people here discussing about how can we make civil society organizations and municipalities thrive in the face of EU enlargement, in the face of EU accession. With this, I would like to give you a little bit of a flavor. For those who were there yesterday, I hope that I sort of captured the essence right. But here are basically our 12 theses from the 12th Danube Participation Day. So basically, a lot of discussion yesterday going on and try to sort of melt it down to, let's say, 12 theses or 12 takeaways that sort of were part also main messages of the discussions. And here they are. One very important one is translate EU values into concrete actions. And I think these things are maybe sometimes more difficult than we think, but basically this is also something that is that everyone in our different functions as in the macro-regional strategies, European Commission at national level, regional, local level, public and private needs to look into how can we translate EU values into concrete actions to know how we actually make EU values work. Also, something I think I hear a lot in the past years is simplify language. But this is also something where this is, I think, something that's actually an enrichment for everyone, because there was also quite clear in the discussions. It's not always the grassroots movements that struggle with policy language. It's also sometimes people who work with policies who struggle with it. But, and this is also very important, do not oversimplify the messages. Don't distort the narrative of cooperation, of the benefits of accession, of the benefits of cooperation, of the benefits of trusting each other. Something that I found also interesting in a way was close the information gap, which sounded a bit trivial, or sounded a bit as if it's about the information there, like that we should provide information, but I think we do provide information. It's just that sometimes it's different where you provide information and where you look for the information. Or also sometimes what kind of information someone actually needs. And for this, it's very important to come together, to talk, and to see actually what's out there, and also how you can sort of bring yourself in, how you can how can you bring in your expertise? How can you access funding? How can you actually be the part of the change? Very concretely with this is also provide physical space for people to come together. I think this is also something for macro-regional strategies, a very important part, to provide spaces where people come together, but also for projects. I think this is at local level, at region level, where people come together, talk. And this also speaks to the information gaps, because this is also where we find out how we can actually work together and how we can proceed together. Enhance a programmatic perspective versus a project perspective. I think both in the strategies in particular, but also I think even in the programs, there is a certain attempt also to encourage project promoters to look beyond the project, which I think, of course, for technical reasons, sometimes a bit difficult, because it's also about funding. But nevertheless, we want to encourage, or we should encourage everyone and ourselves to think more in terms of visions and missions, in terms of having objectives, and that include a variety of initiatives, projects, of a variety of ways how to work together, and how this can be fitted into a need program. Strengthen the partnership principle. This one was actually not quite, it was mentioned, but it was actually a lot of other topics around this that for me boiled down to strengthen the partnership principle. Because in cohesion policy, you have this principle where different stakeholder groups from the local to the national administration, from the private sector, public sector come together. And in cohesion policy, it's all about sort of being part of this whole program cycle, from programming to implementation to monitoring. But I think this principle is actually very valuable also in other policy areas, for once. And it's also important that it's about the quality, because a partnership principle on paper is nice, but it certainly doesn't deliver as much as we would like to do, and it hasn't maybe have the impact that we would expect. But actually making sure that we hold up the quality of partnerships is very important also to succeed. Enhance the coordination and cooperation of civil society organizations for greater visibility. And this also goes a bit together with partnership principle and being part of a process of co-designing policies, of contributing to policies. And here it's also, of course, that the fragmentation of civil society organizations can sometimes be a big challenge also for civil society organizations itself to advocate their interests, or to advocate maybe their sort of demands and their perspectives. But basically a coordination and cooperation is certainly also a way to go. And we see this example also, for example, with initiatives such as in Bulgaria with the Citizens Participation Forum that was actually designed and initiated for the purpose of preparing civil society organizations to engage meaningfully and impactfully in cohesion policy negotiations with the programming authorities. And there are many other examples of this throughout Europe and also in the Danube region, but this is also, there are good examples that we should learn more from, how it works and how it can work, and how this sort of pathway, how civil society can proceed in this pathway. In a way, also, an important part was recruiting and training committed staff in municipalities to improve knowledge of European cooperation, but also recognizing local needs. And this is, of course, also a topic that is sort of has a lot of dimensions, because, of course, recruiting qualified staff is also a matter of funding, of budgets. It is also a matter of availability, human resources. It is also, but it's also a matter of institutional culture. So is it encouraged that people are actually committed and want to engage in European cooperation, or is it something that it's a bit sort of shut down because it's sort of not the core business of a local municipality or a regional authority or a national institution? But nevertheless, I think what we also heard yesterday is that the commitment and engagement of individuals, sometimes it really comes down to individuals, is very, very crucial here. And municipalities should be encouraged to support this. Invest in people, particularly in young people. And this was particularly seen when it comes to enlargement, accession, the rule of law, and democracy, democratic values. That a culture of participation doesn't come overnight. It is something that needs to be trained like a muscle, and it is very important to this end to invest in young people, where a socialization from a very, very early age on has the most impact when it comes to, well, having or sort of getting to a generation of participation that has participation as part of their DNA. So this is where we think that this is also important maybe to take into consideration when we look at projects and initiatives, to take into account how, and that we should also take young people, children from an early age on as target groups when we look at to what should we do to improve the accession process, the enlargement process. Also, an important part was to interact at eye level and value each other's cultural heritage. And this was a bit, sort of turns a bit to the issue of somewhat apparently paternalistic dynamic occasionally when it comes to talking about EU accession or EU enlargement. That there is sort of the EU that sort of holds the values, and maybe the candidate countries that sort of have to catch up with it. And as much as there, of course, when it comes to policy and policy development, yeah, there is sort of a certain catch up to do, but at the same time, it is also about valuing each other's cultural heritage, valuing each other's contributions to this cooperation. And I think this is sometimes, occasionally, sometimes something that is not maybe done in the way it could be done. But I think nevertheless, it is very important for people to convince people why they should engage in this kind of cooperation, because they're valued, not because they're just lagging behind. And something that was very important too was embrace the emotional side of EU accession, or embrace the emotional side of policies in general, for that matter, because we can talk about a lot of technical implementation in policies, but of course, when we try to really make the change, to really sort of induce change and transformation, it's also a feeling. And it's also, of course, a bit difficult to sometimes to think of how to do this. But nevertheless, I think that there are also a lot of interesting initiatives in place that showed how this intercultural cooperation really works for better understanding, but also how the emotions really drive people to be part of it. And this is something that we also, macro-regional strategies, should take into account when it comes to cooperation towards EU accession or towards EU enlargement. And last but not least, and that's the most important one, invest in trust. And I think we have heard it probably a gazillion times, and we will hear it a gazillion times more, but it can't be stressed enough. Whatever we do in our cooperation, whatever we do in our partnerships, investing in trust is the beginning and the end of everything. It's how we interact together. It's also how we deal with challenges, because if we trust each other more, we can also overcome challenges easier. It is about how we can also work together and really tap into each other's strengths, instead of just being skeptical and reluctant in anything any progress that would mean to work together. So with this, I want to end the 12th thesis of our 12th Danube Participation Day. Of course, there were a lot of also a lot of good practices coming with this. And if you're curious, of course, there will be a bit more elaborate report later on. And if you're even more curious, then you can only invite you also to join our participation day next year. However, now we're coming to, now we're still staying in this masterclass, and in the next hour or so, or next one on the, we will hear a bit more about the nitty-gritty of how enlargement can be improved, or how EU accession can be improved, maybe with the support of civil society organizations and municipalities, and applying cohesion policy in the most impactful way. But before we start with our speakers, I'd like to kind of a bit activate you. And for this, I'd like to ask my dear colleague Andreea to the stage.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, everyone, for joining this masterclass today. So I will just go to the next slide. Yeah, and we are going to do a few questions in Slido. So please take out your phone and scan the code. If it asks for the hashtag to enter the questions, please use PA10. And regarding the first question, actually, I would like to change it a little bit, because as we heard, the 12 theses that came from the Danube Participation Day yesterday, without giving you any time to digest those theses, how do you feel about hearing those theses that came from our event yesterday? We heard about investing in trust, investing in people, taking into account cultural heritage, about municipalities. How does that make you feel? Of course, you can talk about your personal feelings as well in emojis, please. But have in mind these 12 theses when you make that very important decision to decide which emoji you will send us. So I see people feel inspired, interested, trusting. It's very good. Good and concrete, yes. Smiley face, laughing face, thumbs up, thinking faces. Yes, it gives us a lot to think about as well. Good news, yes. Visible, valued. Yeah, it makes us all feel very good when we feel valued. Right, I'm just gonna give a few more seconds. I think everyone had the chance to vote. Yes, and we see the big PA10 hashtag and Inspire. Thank you very much for participating in this first question. But now we are moving on with a more thematic question. What is the biggest challenge for local actors in contributing to EU enlargement, according to you? Oh, we already have the lack of funding and resources. First answer. Okay, low public awareness and engagement. Yes, it's picking up. Insufficient capacity and expertise, always a challenge. Okay. Has everyone voted? All right. So on first place, we have insufficient capacity or expertise. Thank you very much for answering that question. Now moving on. What kind of support do local actors need most to contribute effectively to the EU enlargement process? I think with this one, you can choose more options. I'm not sure. Again, capacity building is the most important thing. Yes. All right, I think everyone has a chance to vote. We are taking your answers with us. And moving on to the next question. In which areas can macro-regional strategies provide most support? So we have better access to information and networks. Yes. Did anyone receive directly better access to information and networks from the macro-regional strategies? If you can. Thank you. Thank you. Right. I think we are done with, oh no, there's more answers coming in. I think, yeah, that was it. And yeah, thank you very much for participating. And now I give you back, Claudia.
Thank you. Thank you, Andreea. And yeah, we'll take definitely the better access to information networks with us home to close the information gap. But now we'll hear, so it was very interesting to hear a little bit sort of your perspective on this. And now we'll see if this matches with what we might hear soon. And with this, we come to our first input. Thomas Borg, KDZ Center for Public Administration Research, will talk a bit more about the role of municipalities. Here or? Is this thanks?
That's yours, huh? Okay, thank you, Claudia. But it's not easy to follow up now after so much information. I mean, honestly, I wanted to add the number 13, which is the funding, but you made it now with the questions. Huh? So it was interesting to hear that in the participation day, the money was not a topic. Huh? That's interesting. That's a little bit different to what I will present now when it's about municipalities and cities. In EU accession. So my topic is, and I have to stay with 15 minutes. That was agreed. About why is it relevant that cities, municipalities, local governments are also involved in EU accession issues? That is my topic. I'm coming from Austria, from the Center of Public Administration Research. We work with cities, regions, with multi-level governance in many countries, and we also worked together and are still working together with quite a lot of cities, local governments, local government associations in the questions of EU accession. So the answer for the question, why is it relevant, is quite easy. When I manage to find the right button, then the answer is 70. Yeah. It's 70%. Because 70% of the EU regulations are implemented at local or regional level, something like that. Maybe it's 65, maybe it's 75, but imagine who is doing, the garbage disposal, the water management, the local streets, all these kind of things. So a huge number of EU regulations have to be implemented on local level. So without local governments, EU accession doesn't function. And I mean, this is not really well known. On the one side, those countries which access the EU, they know it then by heart. But I know it from my work in countries which are working on EU accession, that many municipalities are not aware. So we hear sometimes from mayors, EU is far away, and maybe we will never be a member of the European Union. So why should we care? And this is what we always say. Okay, consider 70% of the EU regulations will affect you, will impact you as city, as municipality. Later on. This is, and why can I tell you these kind of things, or why can I discuss these kind of things, is because we made a long time ago already a booklet about it. It's called a Logon. It was Impact of European Union on Local Authorities. It's more than 15 years old, but I mean the content is still the same, the 70%, and this has to be handled by municipalities. So this is why the municipalities need to be aware of. But there is another point which is even more important. This is why should the EU care to involve the cities? And I bring you here this maybe on the first hand complicated picture of two maps. The first map shows the so-called local autonomy index. This shows how good local autonomy, how good local governments are acting in the different countries of Europe. Blue is good, red is not so good, to make the long story short. And the other card, the other map, shows the government effectiveness. This is a World Bank indicator system which shows how good governments, public administrations are working. And I want to give you this picture. I don't give you the table. You could also have the table behind it, but the picture is always nice with the colors, because it shows that those blue in the issue of local autonomy, so have better regional governments, local governments, are also blue in the general government effectiveness, in the services for the citizens, in the trust of the citizens in government. So this is connected. There is a connection. So investing in the local governments, investing in local autonomy, in my view, involving the local authorities and governments already in the EU accession process is an asset for having better governance in the EU already and also in the future EU. So this is the big picture. When you break it down, what does it mean? I mean, to make it more technical, just consider what is going on local level. I know this is different between, let's say, Bosnia and Herzegovina and North Macedonia and Montenegro and so on. So it's not always the full same competences which the municipalities have. This is also, by the way, an issue. The European Union does not know which competences, I mean, in fact, nobody knows, which competences the municipalities, for example, in Spain, in Austria, in Sweden, in Bosnia, Herzegovina, in the Republika Srpska, or in the Federation have. So there is no common overview on that. There are, of course, many papers, but there is not the real good existing overview. But nevertheless, the EU acquis, which has to be implemented then in the cities, is manifold. It goes from the social policy and labor conditions, also in the municipalities. So for the employees in the municipalities, to the issues of the local elections. I mean, afterwards, local elections have also be open for EU citizens in the municipality. It goes anti-discrimination law, of course, the freedoms, the 4 freedoms, which are also touching the local and regional level. But specific things like the procurement laws, specific things like how to bring in the EU environmental law in my, for example, waste or water management company or department. These are the important things where, how to say, it's needed that the municipalities are already involved in this accession process. I know here in the Western Balkans, I mean, the accession procedure is already quite long ongoing process, and many municipalities, most of the municipalities and the local government associations are already working on that. But please be aware, this is not clear to all municipalities, mayors, and employees on the local level what is coming. And also, we will hear later the issue of the regional policy, the regional funding, the cohesion fundings. These have direct impacts on the local level. And the main problem is that the EU functions differently. The EU is an association of member states, of national governments, and not of local governments. And of course, the negotiations are done on the national level with the European Commission, but the municipalities have to ensure that they have a word within the country during the negotiation process. And the more national oriented a country is, the more they need the support of the Commission in this field. Coming to another picture, what is going on now, and why is it even now that it is more important that the municipalities have a say or are involved or have, let's say, you mentioned on the same level, eye level, I think, Claudia, you mentioned it in one of your theses, because in the European Union is also changing, not fast enough, unfortunately, in many facts. But when I look at the European Union now, and let's say maybe 10 years ago, we are discussing now, or the European Commission and the Council are discussing now the new financial framework, multi-annual financial framework, which will change, I guess, everything, also for the municipalities in the European Union. I guess we will hear afterwards more from that. But the municipalities, the cities in the EU are now fearing that they will lose funds. Thesis 13, the hidden thesis 13 will lose funds within the new multi-annual financial framework. Also with the new cohesion policy, the discussions are now, what does it mean for municipalities, cities? Will there be an earmark or will it be easy to get to funds also in future for, how to say, implementing infrastructure in municipalities? So there is much going on the European level always, where the municipalities need to have to be involved, and also in this accession period, this is already important to know how it functions then in future. There is another thing going on. This is the European semester already, also since many years, getting stronger and stronger. Each year, the Commission gives kind of feedback to the countries in which areas they have to further develop, the so-called country-specific recommendations. And when I look at these country-specific recommendations coming from the European Commission, basically a good thing, they more and more attach or touch local government or multi-level governance issues. For example, when you look at the one in Austria, you see further develop your fiscal equalization system. And this means the money between the different levels of government in the country. It's true. It should be done. For no question about it. But of course, this is fully, how to say, touching the local level. And honestly, there is no, how to say, involvement of the city level now in Austria on this issue. At the same time, also very interesting, and this is maybe touching also Bosnia here more intensively, there are the principles of public administration coming from OECD Sigma program, which is financed by the European Commission, further developing the public administration in the accession countries. And with the new version, which is, I think, now 2 years old, the principles of multi-level governance have been included. So also here, via OECD Sigma, it's a program financed by the Commission, the European Union already affects the local governments and the multi-level governance system of the countries, because it says responsibilities need to be clearly distributed between the levels of government. There should be an interinstitutional coordination. Imagine what does this mean for Bosnia-Herzegovina, for example. Transparently implemented, effective oversight mechanisms, all good things, but they are affecting local governments. So there is much going on, very interesting, very important, also on the European Union level. I don't go into the social cohesion and the cohesion policy, because it comes afterwards much more and better details. But of course, this is also an important aspect. Not to forget that European Union, also it's another organization, institution, the Council of Europe. The Council of Europe is the Charter of Local Self-Government, also influences and impacts the local governments. Somehow, the Charter of Local Self-Government is a part of the EU acquis, so it comes from somewhere else, but nevertheless, with the accession discussions, it's clear that countries have to implement the Charter of Local Self-Governments, asking and demanding, requesting strong local governments in the countries. So, my nearly last slide. What does it mean now when we developed, let's say, some recommendations where the local governments or those representing local government should be, what can they do? So, of course, making a strategy. That's what we always say, make a strategy for EU accession. Staff and organization, we heard it already, capacity building, convincing, committing staff of the municipality. So why not going also into policy papers? Maybe this is linked to, was it the first one, make the language easier, understandable, make complex things easier, everyone has to understand it, which means getting into understandable policy papers for the local governments, what EU accession means. Screening, this is done already, luckily also with many donors, screening the EU acquis, what does it mean for the local governments. Start the European integration working groups in the local governments, in the cities, but also on the between parliament and local government representatives, and then go into communication and networking. I guess they are quite similar to your 12 thesis. You see here my, with artificial intelligence, created super pictures. Support and cooperation during the accession process is needed from the central government. So when we are talking, sorry, yep. Nobody tells me that I have that you don't see my perfect my perfect slides. I'm here. That's not good. What this means, the two small pictures, this means there is the need in the countries, in the accession countries, to have a cooperation between the local governments and the national government for accession issues, much stronger than it is existing now. And of course, there is the need for much more citizen participation in this whole process, but we will hear it later. So now I know I have to go to this one once more back, because what does it mean now for the Danube strategy? So, or to make a long story short, the municipalities have been developed or are developing in the European governance system or in the European Union from administrative implementers to strategic partners. That's what we need. That's what we need for the accession. That's what we need, maybe also as a supporting from the Danube strategy. Institutionally, this means a stronger integration into EU decision-making. That's what we want. That's what we need. I know it's a challenge, but nevertheless, that's needed. Economically, this means greater access to funding and growth opportunities. Politically, this means a reinforced role in local democracy, in sustainability, and then the European values, which have been already mentioned. In the end, it's a new system of multi-level governance and subsidiarity, which let's say, better European integration with the support of municipalities and the integration of municipalities will bring. Thank you very much. Sorry for my slide issues, but I was looking into my iPad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think it's a good sign that you're not entirely contradicting what we have discussed yesterday. And it's definitely very important, to see this sort of, sort of the role that the local authorities, municipalities should play in accession, but also with the view what the role that they play once they are part of the European Union. There's maybe sort of one follow-up question here, because we have heard now a lot, and there is a lot that you packed actually in this. But if there is one message that people should take home today, what should it be?
That the local governments have to play a larger, a better, and more intensive role in the EU accession, policy.
Thank you. Before we come to our next speaker, there is actually something that I have myself forgotten to tell you. And this is, of course, you have also the possibility to ask questions to our speakers. And we provide this with the opportunity with Slido. And you can just take this QR code or go to Slido and put in hashtag PA10 and then ask your questions. I'll let you do this, and maybe you have already questions for Thomas, but maybe we'll leave them now, and I would ask Aida Daguda on the floor. I don't know if you want to stay here. Yeah, you stay here. And now I would like to hear a bit more about the role of civil society organizations.
Well, thank you. I'm actually, I was a little bit surprised with today's setting for my introduction and my short speech, because organizers told me it would be 150 people, so 100 obviously missing. So, but important one is that 50 interested ones are here. And plus, I hope that the people would be maybe different than yesterday, but I see many my beautiful colleagues that we have great discussions yesterday. So I promise that I will try to avoid many things I said yesterday, just in order not to be boring to you. And also, these 12 points that as a kind of some important issues that we have as learned from yesterday, I want to reflect on two of them. So one of them is emotional side of EU accession, because emotions are a tricky part. They can be positive, they can be negative. So at least in our region, we really, a majority of citizens honestly and truly is in love with European Union and with that idea. But also we are also frightened, and we have distrust in process, because we have seen from our neighbors that their process of joining the EU lasts for more than 20 years, you know. So we feel like false promises, you know, some games. So emotional side is important, but we have to have a more convincing, I don't know, basis for our to be in love with the idea. And the other is investing in trust. So I want to just stress out that, you know, trust is two-side way. So when you say you should invest in trust, we believe that, okay, government don't trust us as civil society organizations, and we believe they should become now to trust us, you know. But I always think just opposite. We have to earn trust. So it's the very important aspect. So whenever, even if European Union and our government, European Union, civil society, different relationship, when we are talking about trust, it has to be earned, because, you know, we have to work on that very much. So just to add some additional aspect to that. As for my presentation, well, I promised I would not repeat many things, but I believe it's great that we have opportunities to speak again about participation of civil society actors in EU integration processes. So, of course, there is really something that I believe honestly, that no society can be democratic or aligned with the EU values without the active participation of civil society. That's probably the reason why this democratization process is going slow across the region, and why European values are not accepted so quickly as we would like. So, because I believe civil society doesn't have key role, doesn't have important role, and we are somehow on the margins of the process, and very often just avoided or forgotten, or they pretend they don't see us at all. So, well, but in the Danube region, for me, that region is very interesting, because, you know, we have a mixture of countries, members of the EU, and candidate countries, and, you know, it's specific mixture of different experiences and the knowledge. And the CSOs are in unique position to monitor reforms. That's very important. That's our important role, ensuring transparency and accountability. The other role is to advocate for human rights, because we are supposed to give voice to those underrepresented, that social inclusion, environmental sustainability. etc. And also, we are in position to mobilize citizens, especially youth, women, and marginalized groups. It doesn't mean because we are in position to do that, that we are really doing that as much as we should. So that's important distinction. So as I said yesterday, EU accession is a process that needs experts and diplomats and politicians, a lot of them. But it also needs civil society because we are watchdogs, we are storytellers, the bridge builders. So without this spice, this whole meal doesn't have so much good taste. But I spoke yesterday about why we are struggling with involving civil society in EU integration. I will not repeat all the reasons, but I like to say for those who were not present yesterday that it's important to speak about interests rather than values. So I spoke yesterday about interest of government, interest of even European Union, and even civil society organization not to be involved in EU integration processes. So I will not repeat why, but I would just like to add why it is important to think about interests, you know, because when you, I don't know, for many years, I know many organizations struggling for many years to influence on government on some policy or something. So they don't understand why that's not happening, you know. But if they just do it just opposite, no, let's look on interest of that other side. Then it would enable us to change our approach and maybe to be more efficient and more successful, you know. Sometimes that's actually basically, I say differently, you should understand the other side in order to have really fruitful cooperation and to achieve some results. Yeah, as for European Union, I mean, I don't want to go, as I said everything yesterday, but sometimes EU also making some mistake or they are not consistent with involving civil society. Or they just pick up few CSOs that are certain that they think similarly. They said, okay, we done check the box, we done some consultations, you know. And for civil society organizations, there's some saying in our language, I don't know how to translate it in English, but kind of be careful what you wish for, you know, because if that wish fulfilled, then you are in totally new position, maybe not so positive one. So I know for many years we keep saying in Bosnia, oh, we want some easy digital mechanism for consultation. And now we have e-consultations and we do not participate as much as we should, you know. So because this situation requires much more competencies on our side, and that's not easy. You have to work a lot, learn a lot to get competencies. I still want to say a few positive examples of how civil society organizations have successfully engaged in the process. So one recent one from Albania, actually, because the European Union and Albania have a joint civil society consultative committee, JCC, established during this year, and with support of European Economic and Social Committee. So they have in that committee jointly and working together employers, unions, civil society organizations, and I believe that's really a good example. I don't know how it will go, how implementation will go, but I'm glad to see this combination. For Bosnia, unfortunately, I don't have any so positive example, but I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina, so I have to mention something. So actually, I want to mention that there is also a very similar process in Bosnia happening, that we have, because we have two entities and everything is triple complicated than in other country, at least triple. And, but we managed to have employers association, unions from both entities, and civil society organization. But again, keep in mind, we are inspired by European Economic and Social Committee. I want to stress out that European Economic and Social Committee, that platform where it's a social and civil dialogue, and they influence jointly on European policies, you know. So that institutional mechanism in the European Union, and I believe that we don't have to invent hot water again here, but to really look how Europe doing things. And I'm very grateful that that is the first European institution that opens the door for they call that initiative enlargement candidate members. So we went there, we jointly with them developed opinions, and we can see from first hand how dialogue is going on in Europe. And we got many ideas and bring it back to our countries. So I believe that's a very good example that European Union should use more in other institutions as well. And I don't know, in Serbia, I mentioned yesterday, it's EU Convent, where more than 850 organizations participating in the EU integrations. In Serbia, we have a specific situation right now, so this EU Convent currently is not working actively because, waiting for challenges with government to be solved. And in Montenegro, also CSOs are full members in all EU negotiation working groups. That's different type of solution, working, but still have some, not everything is great in that type of process. So I don't know how many time I have, but I just want to say a few more words about what skills and capacity civil society organizations have to have in order to really participate meaningfully in the accession process. So first of all, CSOs have to have policy and legal literacy, because majority of CSOs don't know even basic things about accession process. It just seems too complicated. It is complicated, but people just have that tendency to afraid of something that they don't know, and they are afraid to start learning. And but that has to be done. Simply, EU literacy is needed as a first step to organization to be involved. And when I'm saying this, I have in mind numerous small grassroots organizations that we are meeting, for many years. And when we speak about European integration, they're afraid to speak about that because they don't understand it. So that's area that something should be much more, something should be done. Then also strategic advocacy and communication. So we need organizations that can speak truth to power, clearly, confidently, and constructively. I would add here that we need organizations who are brave and who are stubborn, What does it mean to be brave organization? That's mean when you meet with some high delegation from the European Union, from UN, that you are able, if you don't agree with them, to say that. I don't agree with you because this and this and this. That requires a lot of courage, believe me. And organizations think, and they are right, that sometimes other side will say, oh, they are not so nice, we don't want to work with them a lot. They criticize you. Nobody wants criticizing. But constructive criticism, it should be done. Also, local government. I see many examples that when donor came to local government, it is, oh, now we will establish gender commission inside of your local parliament or something. And they said, yes, okay, of course we will. Although they have two already similar commission established by other two donors, But I would like to see more bravery and honesty and really to say, no, thank you very much. We already have two of those. We would like more, maybe to waste management to concentrate, So that kind of bravery. And and we need to have skills for coalition building across borders, because the Danube region and Western Balkans region require that skill as well, to be really more open and to have more information. And also we have to have knowledge in accessing and managing EU funds. So we cannot expect to really have very little knowledge about that and then count, okay, it would be a lot of money, we just need to, we are here and now give us money and we will do it. That we don't know exactly what. So my colleague spoke about a lot of money yesterday that would be available for some, but yeah, let's remember those emotions. And maybe I don't have any more time. Who is timekeeper? 1 minute? Oh, okay. Yes, I would like to say I would just to mention that, we need some framework in order to play our role as it should be. So, really, we need to have a participation mechanism that are structured. We need clear legal status registration procedures, without pressure on our work. So we have to have enabling environment for our work. We have to have access to funding and resources. We have to have capacity development and knowledge sharing, and we have to have political will and public trust. I have a very wishful thinking what we need to have, and I know that we don't have almost any of these. And of course, digital and technological infrastructure, we need much more support in that way as well, because that environment changing really, really fast. So, and especially I will end with the Danube dimension. As I said, cross-border collaboration, multilingual and intercultural approaches, and regional platforms that will help us to connect easier and more meaningfully, you know. Because I don't like a lot of nice words. I rather like action. So I'm a mechanical engineer by profession, so maybe that's the reason I not have so much trust in words, but rather in action. So I hope I managed to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I know it's always a bit difficult, to say, sort of, to give maybe a similar message, but not quite the same thing. But I really liked also a lot of things that you said, but especially also the constructive bravery that is sometimes required to be precise and concrete and constructive in the criticism, but still really sort of hold your ground. And and with this, of course, that is also something coming also with more confidence, and that confidence comes from more sort of knowledge and experience also in how it works. But I think also it's important always to really define what is needed and maybe what's lacking, and then see how this sort of we can move on and who can contribute to facilitate it. I think a lot of the things come from the organizations themselves, but also a lot of the things come from other stakeholders. So I see that someone has managed to get to a Slido in the Q&A, obviously also wondering about the lack of participants, or apparently that some participants didn't quite make it back to the room. Maybe if there are some more questions in regard to the role of municipalities or the role of civil society organizations, of course, you still have the chance to write those too. But for now, we have now heard about the subnational level, about the roles of local communities, of municipalities, of civil society organizations. But as I said, we are here, the EUSDR Annual Forum, and now I ask Johan to bring it home, to the role of, well, macro-regional strategies, but not only macro-regional strategies. I mean, the cohesion policy has a lot, like a big toolbox. And I would say that some of those tools can be applied maybe in this very situation. And I would like to ask you now to say a bit more about this. Yeah, you can, yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's a bit...
I'll take the opportunity to stand here today. It's a little bit easier for me. I promise I will not use any slides. I will never be able to speak and change the slides at the same time, so that we don't take that risk. And I may also, there may be a little bit of repetition here from in comparison to yesterday's discussion and my intervention yesterday at the participation day. But as I always say, repetition is the mother of all knowledge, so you will have to take it as it is. I also looked at these 12 takeaways from the participation day yesterday, and I also tried to cover some of them in my little intervention here now this afternoon. And again, I agree with my colleague. We would have liked to see a bit more people here now, but we will do our best, and we will at least try to give you interesting and good messages, I hope. So this afternoon, so we've been talking about two things. We have talked about how to better involve local administration and how to better involve civil society organizations. That was also something we talked about yesterday. For the local level, yeah, I take point of the 70%. They're very important. And we know that as a member of the EU, the local government administrations will be extremely important because they are the ones who deliver EU policy on the ground, be it education, be it roads, be it innovation, business innovation, whatever it is. So that is also so extremely important therefore that and they are properly involved in this preparatory process. And I said it yesterday, but I say it again. When Bosnia and Herzegovina, other candidate countries here in the region become member of the EU, you will get money. You will get a lot of money over one day. And the problem will not be that there is no money. The problem will be how can we tap into that money? How can we get it? I see quite many colleagues and friends from nearby Croatia in the room, and I know that you have had a bit, I think you know what I talk about. So there will come a lot of money, but the question is how do we tap into that? For civil society organizations, we heard it a lot, it's very important that we bring them into the process as a question of democratic values, human rights, social inclusions, promoting dialogue and cooperation and to build trust in various ways. It goes both ways, as you said. That is why it is important. But what I wanted are basically three aspects that I wanted to cover. The first one is to say a few words about how EU cohesion policy can support civil society and local authorities in candidate countries before you join the EU. I would also like to look a little bit at other interesting, let's say, mechanisms that one can use already, and start to use them already as a candidate country, where they will certainly be obligatory when you become an EU member state. And then we are here at the 14th Annual Forum on the Danube Strategy, and I also would like to say a few words about what we do and what we can do and what we should do in the Danube Strategy in order to reinforce the participation of the local level and the civil society level, which is already there, but we can do better. So let me start with the first thing, cohesion policy. Well, you know, cohesion policy is basically something that is for EU member states. And that we have also specific preparatory aid at the European level for candidate countries. You are, of course, familiar with EPA and EPA 3. And there is a specific tool there, which is called Civil Society Facility. And there's quite a lot of money there. I think something like 300 million euros for the 21 to 27 period just for this in EPA. So this is just an example of funding streams that are available to candidate countries already now when you are in the preparatory phase. But even if cohesion policy is directed primarily towards EU member states, there are also some interesting funding programs there. I come from DG Regio. I work in a unit that works with cooperation programs, namely Interreg and macro-regional strategies. And Interreg is, I'd say, one of the still quite few programs which I think are preparing stakeholders in candidate countries in a very, very nice way for EU cohesion policy. And why do I say so? I say so because Interreg is based on shared management. You know, very often when we talk about EU programs, it is something which is project-based and where there are experts somewhere in Brussels who sit and decide on the projects. It's not like that in cohesion policy. We work in following this shared management model where project decisions are not made in Brussels, but which are made locally or regionally, nationally. And that's also the same model that we are using in these Interreg programs. And Interreg programs cover also candidate countries and also third countries. And we have, as you know, quite many of them. There are quite many programs that Bosnia and Herzegovina are covered with through. And that's also a very, very important funding stream to deliver what we want to do in the macro-regional strategy. So for me, that's a very, very important. Interreg, both the transnational programs, we have heard this afternoon about the Danube region program, covers the whole region, Danube region, but then we have cross-border programs where, for example, Bosnia and Herzegovina work together with the neighboring countries in various settings, in various programs. I think these programs are also very, very important for local level, for civil society, because they are very much about people-to-people contacts and let's say softer type of cooperation projects, very often on kind of issues which have an interest at local level, like for example tourism, like for example culture, how we go together, how we bring together, how we work together, how we can foster these cross-border areas at local level, at regional level in a good way. So that is a very, very good, if I can say, way to familiarize yourself also with how you will have to work in cohesion policy once you're a member of the EU. There are also other programs that candidate countries can already profit from. They are eligible to participate. You have probably heard about programs like Interreg Europe, which is very much about capacity building across Europe, very often at local level, city level, local authorities. And there's another one called Urbact, where also it is possible for candidate countries to participate. That's very much focused on cities. And then you have the big programs in various sectors, like Horizon, like Erasmus and others, where one can also already participate. So there are lots of funding streams there. But what I wanted to say is that once a country becomes a member of the European Union, let's say the increased toolbox will have many more. There will be many more tools in it, if I can say. And one that I wanted to particularly emphasize is something that we call leader. We have been working a lot with that in rural development. If we bring it out to all types of territorial settings, not only rural, but also cities, then we call it community-led local development. This is something, it's a type of program that is really very much based on partnership, because here, the very kind of base of this is that you form local groups at local level where you need to have the local authority, you need to have the private sector, and you need to have the civil society sector. And those three, they form a local group. They go together, they get a sum of money that then they commit to projects in their area. This is something which has been very much of a success in EU rural development policy, but it's also possible to do through the European Regional Development Fund and in the social fund. So in other words, the cohesion policy funds. You can do that. And I can tell you, because I have been working for many years in Brussels, but during 3 years, I went to a member state administration and worked there as head of unit for the community-led local development unit in that country. And we had 4 funds even. We had the Rural Development Fund, the Regional Fund, the Social Fund, and the Fisheries and Maritime Fund. And we had 48 such local groups across the country. And they were then, as I said, autonomous in the way that they got an allocation per group, and for which obviously they had made a plan. And then they decide themselves which kind of projects they want to support. You have calls locally in the area that interested stakeholders then submit their proposals to. So that's, I think, a very, very interesting model that one can use, because it's a model that really goes locally. And you can also, if you want to be a little bit innovative, you can do it in like 2, 3, 4, 5 local authorities, or 2.5 or 5.5 or whatever you want to do. You can, but otherwise, what I want to say, there's flexibility in this, how you want to set this up. So that is something I want to flag for. And that is also a very good example of this partnership principle, as we talked about. Another thing we talked about yesterday, and also this afternoon, this is about the need to have committed staff. We talked about that. It's very important that local authorities have that. But it's also very important that you have, if you are working with this community-led local development, because then there will be a little office out in your municipality. And there you will have a project officer, you will have an information officer, and you will normally have a financial officer who keeps track on finances. And it's very important, again, then, that we have the right people there, but I think it's also a very, very nice way to bring down this EU, if you like, requirements, administration, whatever you want to call it, to local level. You have it around the corner in your village. There is the office. It's not in Brussels. It's not in the capital. It's not in the regional capital. It's just behind the corner. So I think it's a very, very nice way to bring down EU to the local level, to the local citizens. And we are all citizens, by the way, local citizens. It doesn't matter if we work in Brussels or if we work around the corner in the village. If I then can move to the issue of macro-regional strategies, and specifically the Danube strategy, as we are here now at the 14th annual forum of this strategy. Again, here, what we want to see, obviously, is a kind of a participative governance structure of these strategies. Obviously, it depends also a bit on how these 14 countries are organized. We know that the organizational setup is a bit specific here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's specific in all countries. All countries have their own specificities. But for us, it's very important that we have all levels, first of all, local, regional, national level involved, but also not only public administration in this, but also, again, the civil society sector, the local sector, business, their organizations, labor, the labor side, labor organizations, so that we have a broad partnership in this. And I say it because it's very important when we want to develop projects. I have the pleasure to have a coordinating role for all 4 EU macro-regional strategies in Europe. And that takes me on very many travels across Europe. And I have seen that in some parts of Europe, in some other macro-regional strategies, they have been working a lot with bringing in local people in this procedure, in these processes, and very much project generation is done at local level. But there are also examples in macro-regional strategies where you have people from civil society organizations also in the governance structures of these strategies. And I think that's a very nice way to do it, and to make sure that, you know, all types of bodies, stakeholders are properly included in this. I know it's easy for me to say this, and I know that the situation, as I said, looks a bit different from country to country. And in the Commission, we cannot force this to happen, because macro-regional strategies are, it's not EU funding programs. We have no EU law. This is member states, candidate countries that go together and to participate. But we can always try to stimulate this type of inclusion, and that's what we are trying to do. For us, macro-regional strategies are important because they bridge, if you like, the EU level with the local level. It's a way to bring down EU political priorities to a regional level, and to adapt them a bit to the specificities of that region, be it the Danube region, or be it the Alps, or be it the Baltic Sea region, or the Adriatic and Ionian region. And and also in this, to work with a macro-regional strategy, obviously, and here I come back to one of the 12 points again, we need a capacity building and training. And we do that. We have also set up a model where each strategy has a support structure. Here in Danube is called the Danube Strategy Point, which is functions basically like a secretariat for the Danube strategy. And one of the tasks of the Danube Strategy Point is to provide this training and capacity building to the strategy and to those who work in the strategy. They do that very well. And we see that there's a clear need to do this, because these type of platforms, they are very good, but they can sometimes be a bit frustrating because you cannot understand, you cannot see exactly all the levels, who is doing what, how the things link together, if you do not have proper training, a proper facing in to this. And that is also what our colleagues are providing. So that is important. This also leads me into another one, investment in people, but I think I covered that there. And I think that probably I'm running out of time because we are close to 5 o'clock here. So I think I would like to stop my intervention there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope that this is also a good sort of a good overview of what cohesion policy can do for local communities and civil society organizations at the moment and also in the future. But also, I think it is a call for us in the macro-regional strategies and beyond, how to make this work and support also that civil society organizations and municipalities can actually take active part. I've seen that there is one question, and this one I will ask you or pass on to you. I've also seen there's a whole conversation going on the presence, and I think next year we'll ask the presidency to just pull everyone into the room. And this is from Gabriela Radkova. How should we improve the integration literacy through the civil society if the topics are often not discussed or barely understood? So who wants to take that on? I think it's sort of understood as in how can the maybe if someone wants to explain this a bit more, or do you want to have a go?
I mean, if I understood it right, it's about how to inform also the citizens, something like that. I can just give maybe some examples which I know mainly, maybe also from some countries coming from the municipal level. So I mean, this is why we also say, okay, consider enlargement and EU issues on the local level, because I mean, there you have the discussions. If the mayors, if the city councillors are aware of what's going on, they can discuss it with the citizens on the spot, and that this is also what's going on. This is also what's going on. Then there is, I don't know if it's the right English word, there is the how to say, the method or the project of EU city councillors, something like that, or city parliament members, which take over a specific role of being, let's say, an EU ambassador. Having knowledge, having better direct links to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is doing the negotiation, so that I have one person there in the cities, in the municipalities, more informed and making this dialogue with the citizens. So these are some approaches which I know from municipalities. Quickly,
Thank
but
you.
I guess civil society. I mean, yeah.
Do you want to add something to this? Or anyone? No. There's one more question, and that's the last one. And that is, I don't know who it is addressed to. But can you imagine cooperate with local NGOs to bring the EU closer to people, like opening open centers that reflect their needs but contain EU values? So, do you make anything of this?
That's easy question, but difficult answer. It's really, yesterday we discussed that. My opinion is that media has to be involved a lot, because it's difficult to translate this type of talk, EU accession and everything. It's even difficult to translate it to municipal councillors, not even to mention common people, young people, For them, it's simply, they don't understand that language, and somebody has to translate that to them, So I don't know if I helped with my answer or not, but that's very important at this point, because at the local level, at least in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we have visited really remote communities, cantons, and speak with municipal councillors, with CSOs. It's very far away from them. They don't think about this. So, somebody has to translate it for them to understand.
Thank you. So I think the answer is yeah. So that would be a good thing. So thank you very much, and a big round of applause for our experts. And with this, we close today's session, and thank you for your attention. This was much appreciated. Thank you. Bye.